Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. In the quiet town of Dayton, Tennessee, nestled among the rolling hills of the eastern part of the state, a chilling encounter would forever change the life of Jeff Revis. The year was 1985, and Jeff, a 25-year-old local, had recently taken on a new job at the city water plant. Little did he know that this seemingly mundane position would lead him face to face with an otherworldly presence that would haunt his memories for years to come. Jeff had always been drawn to the supernatural. As a young boy of 10, he had his first brush with the paranormal when he encountered a strange ethereal figure dressed in robes near the church next to his family home. The childhood experience sparked a lifelong fascination with ghosts in Jeff. Even decades later, he has remained enthusiastic about the paranormal and wishes for more ghostly encounters. However, Jeff has made one clear exception. He hopes never again to face anything like what he encountered that life-altering night at the water plant. The Dayton water plant was an unassuming building responsible for filtering and pumping water to supply the entire town of Dayton, Tennessee. Jeff had started working there earlier that year, initially as a labourer for the city. For the first few weeks, Jeff worked the day shift, learning the ins and outs of the facility. Once his training was complete, Jeff transitioned to the night shift, working from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. At first, the job seemed easy enough. The plant was spotlessly clean and well lit, with no cobwebs or dark corners to fuel the imagination. Jeff would often bring along his little dog Rastus for company during the long, quiet nights. However, there was one area of the plant that always made Jeff uneasy: the basement. The basement housed the massive pipes that brought water in from the river. These behemoths, 6 to 8 feet in diameter, dominated the space. Even during daylight hours, Jeff felt an indescribable sense of unease while in the basement, as if he wasn't welcome there. He avoided it whenever possible, sensing that some malicious force was lying dormant. As the weeks passed, Jeff settled into his routine. But on one fateful night, in the late summer of 1985, everything changed. It was a typical shift just past 3 a.m, and Jeff was alone in the plant. Rastus had stayed home that night, leaving Jeff with nothing but his thoughts and a book to pass the time. Sitting behind his desk in the office, Jeff suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of foreboding. Something was about to happen. He could feel it in his bones. The air seemed to thicken with tension, and an unexplainable dread began to creep over him. As if to confirm his fears, the silence of the night was suddenly shattered by an unexpected sound. The cabinet doors in the hallway, securely fastened with hinges, inexplicably fell off. This seemingly impossible occurrence sent a chill down Jeff's spine, heightening his already frayed nerves. From his position behind the desk, Jeff had a clear view of the hallway through the open doorway across from him. To his right, the hallway led to the basement door, the source of his long-standing unease. As he sat there, frozen in place, Jeff sensed that whatever was coming would emerge from that direction. Moments later, his worst fears were realised. A dark figure drifted into view, moving from right to left down the hallway. It seemed to bounce slightly, hovering just inches above the floor. As it reached the centre of the doorway, it turned to face Jeff, revealing a form that defied explanation. The entity appeared humanoid in shape, with a torso, arms, legs and feet, but lacked any distinguishing features. It was as if a man had been dipped in tar, creating a solid, featureless silhouette. Despite its apparent solidity, the fact that it floated above the ground left no doubt in Jeff's mind that this was a spirit, and a malevolent one at that. As the apparition drifted to the threshold of the office door, Jeff found himself paralysed with fear. His heart raced, and he genuinely believed he might die from sheer terror. The entity began to reach out towards him, its arms impossibly elongating with each attempt to grab him. With each gesture, waves of negative energy washed over Jeff. He was assaulted by feelings of fear, malice and hatred, all directed squarely at him. It was a crushing psychological attack, leaving him gasping for breath and unable to move. Just when Jeff thought the end had come, something unexpected happened. The entity made one final lunge towards him, then suddenly straightened up, as if distracted. It turned its featureless head back down the hallway, as though something had caught its attention. After a moment, it faced Jeff once more, before turning its entire body and retreating in the direction from which it had come. For several agonising seconds, Jeff remained frozen, unable to even draw breath. When he finally managed to inhale, it was like surfacing after nearly drowning, his lungs burning as they filled with air. Shaken to his core, Jeff's first instinct was to reach for the telephone, desperate to connect with another human being and anchor himself back into reality. Despite his overwhelming desire to flee, Jeff felt compelled to stay at his post. Whether it was a sense of responsibility or fear of losing his job, he couldn't bring himself to abandon his duties. However, he refused to leave the relative safety of the office for the remainder of his shift, letting the water filters run unattended. In the days and weeks that followed, Jeff struggled to make sense of his terrifying encounter. He began to research similar phenomena, learning that underground water sources often seem to attract or channel spiritual energy. This information led him to wonder if the entity he had seen was somehow connected to the water flowing into the plant's basement. Jeff's experience at the Dayton water plant would have a lasting impact on both him and the facility. In the years that followed, other night shift workers reported feeling uneasy in the plant, some even carrying weapons for protection against an unnamed threat. However, Jeff kept his own experience to himself, not wanting to frighten his colleagues further. Intriguingly, Jeff later learned from a friend who worked at a nearby nursing home that screams had been heard coming from the direction of the water plant at night. This revelation only deepened the mystery surrounding the malevolent entity Jeff had encountered. As time passed, Jeff's perspective on the experience evolved. Initially, he had described the entity as demonic, unable to find a more fitting term for the pure evil he had sensed. However, with reflection, he began to wonder if the spirit's intent had been not to harm him physically, but to feed off his fear. He had read theories suggesting that fear could sustain certain types of entities, and if true, his terror that night would have provided quite the feast. The encounter at the Dayton water plant remains a defining moment in Jeff Revis's life. While his fascination with the paranormal persists and he still wishes for more ghostly experiences, he hopes to never again encounter that dark spectre in his lifetime. The entity Jeff encountered bears a striking resemblance to what paranormal researchers often describe as a shadow person. These apparitions are typically reported as dark human-shaped figures that lack distinct features, much like the being Jeff saw that night. Jeff's description of the entity as like a man who had been dipped in tar aligns closely with common shadow person accounts. The featureless nature of the figure, its solid pitch-black appearance, and its ability to move without touching the ground are all characteristics often associated with shadow people. Moreover, the intense feeling of fear and malevolence that Jeff experienced is frequently reported in shadow person encounters. Many witnesses describe an overwhelming sense of dread or evil in the presence of these entities, just as Jeff did. While Jeff didn't use the term shadow person himself, possibly being unfamiliar with the concept at the time, his encounter fits many of the hallmarks of this phenomenon. This similarity adds another layer of intrigue to Jeff's already chilling experience at the Dayton water plant, placing it within a broader context of similar paranormal encounters reported around the world. To this day, the Dayton water plant persists in its operations, continuing to serve the town's needs. But for those who know its history, particularly on dark, quiet nights, there's always the lingering question: what other secrets might be lurking in the shadows, waiting to reach out from the depth of its basement below?